If you look at something that causes you to feel loving, then you have chosen well, because in your focus, you have chosen something that is causing an activation within you that is so in alignment with who you are, so in alignment with you as source energy, that you are wide open. And under those conditions, we would say you are experiencing what we would call the art of allowing your full connection with who you are. But when you focus upon something that causes you to feel negative emotion, you have chosen not so well, because now you have activated within yourself a vibration that is setting up enough resistance that you are not purely allowing the alignment between you and you. And we want to say to you, this is really worth getting your conscious thoughts around, because all illness is about that. First, we would say all negative emotion is about that, whether you call it anger or fear, whether you call it bewilderment or confusion or overwhelmment. All negative or positive emotion is about your alignment with source energy. And if it feels good, it means open valve. It means full tank. It means cork is floating. It means utter alignment. But if you do not feel so good, no matter what you call it, really we'd like to say there are only two emotions. One feels good and one feels bad. And while there are many degrees of what feels good and what feels bad, you are aligned with who you are, or you're pinching it off to some degree. And we're encouraging that you become so aware of the way you feel and so sensitive to that emotion within you that you are literally guiding your thoughts by your sensitive awareness to emotion. Now, that may sound a little strange to you, because if this were a hot stove, by looking at it, you might not know it's hot. So your eyes do not serve you that well. Would you agree? You cannot hear that it's hot unless it's a crackling fire. And so your ears are not serving you that well either. Would you agree? It may smell hot, but it may not smell hot. Chances are you're going to use your indicators of sense in your fingertips. You're going to use your feeling sensors to know if this stove is hot. And so as you approach it, you may approach it gradually, and you may realize that it is too hot to touch, and so you wisely would not. You're not using your indicators of sight and sound and smell and taste to know whether the stove is hot. And in like manner, you don't use your sense of sight and sound and touch and taste to understand what you are doing with your emotions, what you are doing with your vibration. You use the sensor that you call emotion to let you understand what your vibrational content is. And we would say to you that above all other sensors, your emotions matter most. And it's an interesting thing, because so many of you have lost sight of the way you feel and the importance of the way you feel. And you have instead turned to using other sensors, like using your eyes to see how someone else is responding to you, rather than using your own emotions to indicate how you really feel. It would be like not having any sensors in your fingers and trying to see if the stove is hot. And you say, no, I don't think it is. And then you just lay on it, only to discover that it was detrimental to your experience. And so what we're really wanting you to begin to do is to realize the importance of your emotions, and realize that your emotions are letting you know in a very sophisticated way what your vibrational content is. And it's time for you, if you are wanting to be the deliberate creator of your experience, to let the way you feel be of paramount importance. Now, many would say, well, feeling hasn't served me very well, because I've been a very sensitive being, and being sensitive is really painful in this world where everyone, in fact almost no one, really cares about how I feel. It seems to me that my mother cared at first, and then she got busy, but nobody really cares about how I feel. And we say, it must only matter to you how you feel. And you cannot factor in too much how anybody else feels about what you're doing, or you immediately get off track with your guidance system. And here's what we mean by this. So you can feel with us this emotional range from empty to full, or from negative to positive, can't you? So let's say that for whatever reason, you've focused upon some aspects of your life or someone who's near to you, and you find yourself in a severely uncomfortable place. Let's call it depression, and let's call it suffocating depression. Maybe someone you adore has just made their transition into non-physical. Maybe you have been diagnosed with something that you don't know what to do about. Maybe your financial empire is collapsing. Maybe someone you adore has just run off with someone that she adores. And so you are having this response to what you are observing, and you are feeling strong negative emotion. And we are going to call it depression. Now, we want to say to you that who you are powerful, empowered, free beings. That's who you are. You came forth into these bodies knowing that power, feeling that empowerment, and knowing that freedom. And that is the natural set point of who you are from non-physical. You are free, and you know it, and you feel powerful, and that feels so very, very good. So we would say that that free feeling of empowerment is who you really are, and that disempowerment that feels like depression is about as not who you are as you can be. So here you are in your place of depression, and you reach for the best feeling thought that you have available. Now, those are key words. We didn't say the best feeling thought that you've ever thought. We didn't say the best feeling thought that anybody has ever thought. We said the best feeling thought that you have available to yourself right now. So from your depression, the best feeling thought that you may have available may be a thought of anger. And as you find it, you've got to be the one to acknowledge, yes, this angry thought does feel better to me. At least I can breathe now. At least I can breathe. I can bear being in my skin with this angry thought while that depressed thought was suffocating. I could not bear that. This thought feels better. And in your conscious acknowledgement that this thought feels better, a wonderful thing happens. You regain control. And that feeling of powerlessness lifts off of you because you have done something about the way you feel. So now, we're not encouraging you to stay in that angry place. We're encouraging you to take your position in it, acknowledge that you've moved to that better feeling place, acknowledge that you did it deliberately, acknowledge that it feels better, and in doing all of that, you feel the power and control and empowerment return to you, and then keep reaching for a better feeling thought. So from that depression to that rage or anger, you made a significant vibrational movement, and now you're in anger. Have you noticed how there are things that you are angry about, and then there are things that you are angry about? And there are some things that you are really spitting nails angry about, and there are things that you are irritatedly angry about. So there's quite a range within anger, and once you step into that anger range, then you have access to less anger. And then from there, you can find thoughts that feel more like aggravation, frustration. And then from there, you can find thoughts that feel more like irritation, overwhelmment. And then from there, you can find thoughts that feel more like pessimism. And then from there, you can find thoughts that feel more like hopefulness, optimism. And then from there, you can find thoughts that feel more like belief. And then from there, you can find thoughts that feel like knowing. But you don't do it all at once. You can do it quickly. You can do it much more quickly than most people realize. But you cannot do it all at once. And so we want to bring your attention to the fact that your emotions are such wonderful indicators. And we want you to leave here today, and we believe that each of you will, understanding that never again are you powerless, because never again are you stuck with an emotion that you cannot do something about. The set point that we are wanting you to feel is where you are right now. In other words, where I usually go on a subject. If you were to analyze Esther's experience over a year or so, you would notice that a place that she commonly finds herself on this emotional scale is in a place of overwhelmment. That's about as far negative as her vibration goes on a consistent basis. Her most negative, often offered emotion that is disallowing some of the life force that would be there otherwise is a feeling of overwhelmment. And you all have a sort of set point somewhere too. You know people whose set point seems to be joy. You know people whose set point seems to be rage. You know people whose set point seems to be depression. In other words, you know people that are all along in that. But what we're wanting you to understand is it doesn't matter where any of them or you are, you can move that set point with more ease than you know. So, Going back to the analogy of being in your car on the road between Phoenix and San Diego and understanding that as long as you're facing in the right direction, you have to get to where you're going, we want to turn your attention toward your emotions because that's the only way you're going to know whether you're facing in the right direction. So as we are moving forward here today, with as many of you who are willing to play with us, we're going to help you to identify relative to the things that you want, where you are emotionally. And then we're going to help you find the words that move that emotion closer in the direction to where you want to be. And so then you have a conversation with us or with your friends. And you say something like, I don't have any idea what I'm going to do about this. Now, if you are paying attention to the way you feel, you'll be able to feel whether that statement took you back to Phoenix or moved you closer to San Diego. And the thing that we want you to feel here today is that you want to always be aware of where you started and where you want to be so that you can feel which way you're going with your emotions. Because what has happened to so many of you is you're in Phoenix, you want to go to San Diego, you get to Yuma, then you go back to Phoenix, then you get to Yuma, then you go back to Phoenix, then you get to Yuma, then you go back to Phoenix, and you don't even know you're doing it. And then you say, I can't get what I want. I can't get to where I want to be. And we say, yes, you can. You just got to keep headed in the right direction. You say, well, how do I know whether I'm headed in the right direction? And we say, you got to pay attention to the way you feel, because the way you feel lets you know whether you're headed in the right direction. If you go from depression to anger, depression to anger, to depression to anger, to depression to anger, you're going back and forth from Phoenix to Yuma, to Phoenix to Yuma, to Phoenix to Yuma, and you're not ever going to get to San Diego, even though it is utterly possible. You have to keep moving steadily toward where you want to be, and your emotions are the only thing. Your emotions, not somebody else's. You can't go by what somebody else wants. You can't guide yourself by what your religion, or by what your mother, or by what your teacher, or by what your lover, or by what anybody else is trying to guide, because they don't know. They cannot accurately assess the vibration of your desire and the vibration of where you are. Only you can, and your emotions do a magnificent job of this. Now, you don't have to do this all in one fell swoop, although you can. Only you know how much time or attention you have to give to it. But the thing that we are so much wanting to awaken within you today is an appreciation for your guidance emotional system and a decision that says, I'm going to reach for the best feeling thought that I have available to me on any subject that I find myself focused upon. So many times you turn right around and go right back to Phoenix, knowing full well you're doing it, and we don't think that you will ever do that again. In other words, we think that after our conversation here today, that you will be in control of your thought process, because you will have forevermore tied the way you feel to the direction of your thought. And never again is negative emotion going to go unnoticed by you. When we say you are the creator of your own reality, and that well-being is your natural legacy, and that well-being wants you, and that you are supposed to thrive, that abundance is supposed to be yours, everything that you want is supposed to unfold for you, we are not kidding you at all. Things that you've been asking for that you have not been letting in because of the degree of your vibrational resistance will begin to budge. You'll start seeing movement in all aspects of your experience. And by the time you move from anger into frustration and you maintain that on a pretty steady basis, all kinds of other movement begins to take place. When you get up into the range where you're mostly feeling good, people who are looking at you from a distance or people who have known you before will be amazed at the things that are turning up in your experience. It will be an avalanche of manifestational bliss. We are not kidding you. Shifting your vibration is like opening the door that's been holding away from you the things that you've been asking for. There is nothing that you cannot be or do or have. And the only thing that has ever been keeping any of those things from you has been your own degree of resistance. And as you consciously release resistance by consciously reaching for the thought that feels a little better, you move steadily towards San Diego.